filmed on location with the men and women of law enforcement. All suspects are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
Officer Cray, I've been expecting you.
Good afternoon, Sergeant.
Please come in and sit down. So the reason I called you in was to get a report on station resources.
Well, sir, we have 43 officers in the field.
A well-rounded force, Cray.
25 squad cars, out of which 23 are operational.
Ensure the 2 vehicles are fully operational by Tuesday for the heads of government meeting.
Yes, sir. We have 10 sniffer dogs, 2 without noses.
Without noses? That can't be right. How do they smell?
Awful. In this sentence, we're going to have a look at the difference between linking verbs and doing verbs. In this sentence, the dog smelled something. The verb is smelled, and it is a doing verb because it is something that the subject, the dog, is actually doing. And what is it smelling? It smelled something. In the next sentence, the dog smelled awful. The verb is smelled, and in this case, it is a linking verb because after the linking verb, there is a predicate adjective, which is awful. And this linking verb smelled links that predicate to the subject, telling us how awful the dog smells. So, do you remember the definition of a verb? Remember that a verb is a word that tells what is being done in the sentence, one of the 23 helping verbs, and or a linking verb which links the predicate to the subject. Now, let's have a look at this diagram that tells us all about helping verbs, doing verbs, and linking verbs. So, starting off with the helping verbs, we've got is, am, are, was, were, be, being, and been. Has, have, had, do, does, did, shall, should, will, would, may, might, must, can, could. These are all the helping verbs. Now let's look at linking verbs. So linking verbs include is, am, are, was, were, be, being, been, and they're in the middle to show that these words are both helping verbs and linking verbs. Look, sound, smell, taste, feel, appear, grow, become, turn, get, run, stand, sit, go, come, stay, remain, lie, prove, test, fall, mark, wax, act, seem, and resemble. So these are the linking verbs. Now let's look at doing verbs. Now there are lots and lots of doing verbs. We'll only look at some here. So here are some doing verbs. You can see they're all things that can be done. So these are all the doing verbs. And we also have these doing verbs, which also could be helping verbs depending on the sentence. And we also have these ones, which also could be linking verbs depending on the sentence. So you can see the crossover of verbs. Some verbs can operate as both helping and doing verbs depending on the sentence. Some verbs could be either doing or linking verbs, and some verbs could either be helping verbs or linking verbs. Now, how do you distinguish between doing verbs and linking verbs? In this sentence, feel this sandpaper with your fingers. That's an invitation to do something. So that's a doing verb, and it has a direct object. In this sentence, Susan isn't doing anything. She is just in a state of feeling terrible. This is a linking verb. In this sentence, looked is something that the electrician did. And in this sentence, this is how the electrician appeared. He appeared to other people, he appeared startled. So that's a linking verb with a predicate adjective. In this sentence, this is something the magician did. He physically went and he appeared to do a show on stage. And in this sentence, the magician appeared, or he seemed to be, or looked to be flustered. So that is a linking verb with a predicate adjective. So you'll need some more practice on this to really understand. first, let's have a look at how to diagram these sentences. So the diagram for a doing verb is, as you know, quite simple. And here's the diagram for the linking verb. Just remember that you have an angled line between the verb and the predicate if there's a linking verb. Let's look at the first 5. So, what kind of verb is this? A doing verb or a linking verb? Mark the sentence. Here is the marking. And it is a doing verb because it's asking to do something. Now what about this sentence? Is this a linking verb or a doing verb? Here's the marking, and it is a linking verb. Now diagram these sentences. And here are the diagrams. Okay, for the second group of sentences, how do you mark this sentence? Here's the marking. We've got a linking verb. And how do you mark this sentence? It has a doing verb, and it has a direct object as a result of it having a doing verb. How do you diagram this sentence? Here's the diagram. How do you mark this sentence? Here's the marking. It has a linking verb and a predicate adjective. How do you mark this sentence? Here's the marking, and because it's a doing verb, it has a direct object. How do you diagram these sentences? Here are the diagrams. How do you mark this sentence? Here's the marking. It's a doing verb and has a direct object. And how do you mark this sentence? Here's the marking. It has a linking verb and a predicate adjective. How do you diagram these sentences? Here are the diagrams. Now, how do you mark this sentence? Here's the marking. It is a linking verb, so there is a predicate adjective as well. And how do you mark this sentence? Here's the marking, and it's a doing verb. How do you diagram these sentences? Here are the diagrams. So, that is the difference between doing verbs and linking verbs. Doing verbs tell you about something being done, and linking verbs basically link the subject and the predicate together. So I hope that helps you. You need to do practice in this to be able to determine the difference. After you get some practice, it's going to be a lot easier to know the difference between the two. So do the exercises, and we'll see you in the next lesson.